welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. I'm Melissa. If you're new here, first things first, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content. I post new videos every single Sunday and Wednesday, and subscribing to my channel really helps me get mental health information out there to our communities of color and tons of free LCSW test prep. So in a few days, less than a week, I believe, actually maybe about a week or so, on the 31st, my social work study with Melissa LCSW test prep program will be going live, available for purchase on my website. Visit the link down below in the description box if you'd like more information, or if you'd like the link to purchase it on the 31st of March. I'm actually still really working on it, on the finishing touches. It's taken a lot of time and a lot of work, but if you find my videos on my channel helpful, then you will likely find the study program helpful, because the way that I have it developed is similar to the way that I have the videos on my channel, in terms of kind of addressing different types of learning styles. So definitely head to that. In the meantime, though, we have another video today. The videos that I do put out are more general, but if you are really looking for a study guide that includes a more thorough sort of step-by-step explanation on different topics with test your knowledge test prep questions at the end of each section, and actual rationale for the mock exam, and also tons of private videos, then you're going to want to take a look at that, because that is really going to incorporate a lot. But I know that I've also gotten a lot of requests for the vignettes. The vignettes are really helpful, so continue to leave me comments on your sorts of video requests, what sorts of videos are helpful, whether it be LCSW test prep or different psychoeducational material on mental health. So let's go ahead and get into the content of this video. So I want to jump into the vignette and the test prep question first. I have it a little bit backwards this time, because usually I go over the information, and then after I go over the information, then I have the test prep question, or I have the test prep question in a completely different video after I spend one video, or the first part of the series, going over all the information. But I wanted to do it backwards this time, because I just wanted to kind of test your knowledge, and then we're going to look at the information afterwards. So let's go ahead and do this. You're going to want to pause this, test your knowledge, and compare it to the answer, so that we can kind of see where your test taking skills are. Okay, so you may have guessed from the thumbnail that this is about a colleague that is dealing with some serious mental health or addiction issues. So that's why you clicked here. This is not an experience that I've had, so if this sounds familiar, or if you're a colleague of mine and you're like, oh my gosh, who did she see drinking at work? Nobody. This is just made up. I make up all my vignettes. So I just want to say that right off the bat. Okay, so let's get into it. A social worker at a community agency notices a fellow colleague at the agency has been slurring his words at the morning meeting. The colleague tells the social worker that his wife just filed divorce papers, and he is very upset. Later that day, the social worker notices the colleague sneaking vodka into his coffee cup before facilitating a support group. According to the NASW, what is the first thing the social worker should do to address this? So if you watched my videos before, you know that these keywords, first, next, best, most, are really important, because all of these could be possible answers, but we want to do what the NASW says we should do first. So option A, email the colleague a list of treatment centers. While this may be helpful, we don't know if the where the colleague is in terms of, if we're thinking about motivational interviewing, stages of change, if they're in denial, if they're at the pre-contemplation stage, or even at the contemplation stage. So this also has the word email in, so this isn't as direct. So for that reason, this doesn't seem like a strong answer. Option B, pull the colleague aside, consult with them about the concerns of their behaviors, and assist them to take remedial action. So this sounds strong. Let's take a look at the other ones before, though, just to make sure. Option C, inform the supervisor of the concern so that an HR conference may be held with the colleague. So this seems like maybe something that may be done, outside of the NASW, like if you are in a different profession and you have your own code of ethics, or if you're not a mental health or behavioral health provider and your profession is like in IT or something like that, or engineering, maybe this is something that you might do, but we're looking specifically at the NASW. So let's read the last option. Option D, report the colleague to the NASW and send the colleague a pamphlet about what to do when dealing with personal concerns at work. So this could definitely be a viable step. If we're doing the first thing, though, this is definitely not the first thing. We're never going to want to, when it has to do with any like impairment or something, we want to be able to talk to the colleague about that first before any reporting. So it wouldn't be reporting them. Again, like I mentioned, for option C, this would be good to do maybe if it was a different type of occupation, but not under the NASW Code of Ethics. So we're going to cross that off. So that leaves us with option B. Option B is going to be our answer. Pull the colleague aside, consult with them about the concerns of their behaviors, and assist them to take remedial action. And I actually am citing the NASW Code of Ethics. So let's actually take a look at that right now, because like I said, I'm doing this a little bit backwards today. All right, so impairment of colleagues. Social workers who have direct knowledge of a social work colleague's impairment that is due to personal problems, psychosocial distress, substance abuse, or mental health difficulties, and that interferes with practice effectiveness, should consult with that colleague when feasible and assist the colleague in taking remedial action. So again, this is what we want to do first. So here's a step moving forward. So social workers who believe that a social work colleague's impairment interferes with practice effectiveness and that the colleague has not taken adequate steps. So that's after the colleague has been kind of taken to the side and you've talked to them, then they decide that they're not going to take adequate steps, and the impairment should take action through appropriate channels established by employers, agencies, NASW licensing, and regulatory bodies and other professional organizations. So this is what we would do later on. So in the vignette above, the other options definitely could happen, but not first. So incompetence of colleagues. So these are other kind of areas that we should explore too, because I'm sure you've heard that saying that sometimes colleagues or coworkers may be more challenging at times than dealing with the actual work, with the caseload, whether it be documentation, or whether it be whatever parts of the job that can sometimes be the part of social work that is kind of like a little bit more tiresome than the actual providing services part that I know that you guys love as social workers. But sometimes, there can be colleagues and people that we come across that aren't the nicest or easiest to work with. Or also there may be incompetence. So I know that people have asked me in the past, like, what do I do if, I'm working with somebody that really doesn't know XYZ? So I always refer to the NASW Code of Ethics, so I'm going to go over that here. So social workers who have direct knowledge of a social work colleague's incompetence should consult with that colleague when feasible and assist a colleague in taking remedial action. So it kind of is the same thing as above, actually this very same thing, where you want to consult with the colleague first before taking any further steps in terms of going to somebody else. Social workers who believe that a social work colleague is incompetent and has not taken adequate steps to address the incompetence should take action through appropriate channels by established employers, agencies, NASW licensing. So the same thing as impairment of colleagues. So you're really going to want to perhaps address this with that person's manager, direct manager, or supervisor. And then depending on kind of what they decide to do, they may bring it up to their agency and have that looked at closely. And then the next kind of step, the higher ups would probably determine if it was appropriate to report to the licensing board or NASW. So unethical conduct of colleagues. So I'm just going to go through this. Social workers should take adequate measures to discourage, prevent, expose, and correct the unethical conduct of the colleague. So again, it goes back to addressing it directly. And then if that doesn't work, social workers should be knowledgeable about established policies and procedures for handling concerns about unethical behavior. So social workers should be familiar with national, state, and local procedures for handling ethical complaints. So this kind of comes into mandated reporting. It depends on the unethical behavior, of course, and so that's why in California, there's a law and ethics exam, and then for other states, there are different sorts of exams. So you're really going to want to take a look at your state's guidelines and your board for your state. So another part of that, so if someone is acting unethically, this should be sought by resolution by discussing concerns with a colleague when feasible. So again, kind of what we've addressed above. And when necessary, social workers who believe that a colleague has acted unethically should take action through appropriate channels. So again, going through your state guidelines, whatever that state is or that board is in your state. And then, of course, social workers should defend and assist colleagues who are unjustly charged with unethical conduct. So the common theme that we're seeing here, if there's an impairment, incompetence, or unethical conduct of fellow colleagues or fellow social workers, then we have the obligation to talk to them when appropriate or when feasible before anything, and document that for yourself just so you know that that's something that you did, so you have that on file, because if no action has been taken or no adequate steps have been taken to address those things, then as we see, the next action step is to then address the managers, the organization, and then ultimately NASW. Alrighty, I hope that was helpful. When I was studying for the test, I really had no idea when I came across a question like this that the first action step would be to talk to the colleague. I honestly thought that it would be to report them to the NASW. I thought that was the first step because, I think with mandated reporting, it kind of that sort of thinking with mandated reporting and studying for that kind of makes you lean more on the conservative side of things, and that's very conservative with just going straight to the board as opposed to talking directly with the colleague, which is definitely important because you want to give that person a chance to address it if they don't realize it's going on. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Please, again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content. Until next time, managing mental health matters.